Hi Whiskers! Welcome to another video, another Dark Tower. This time we're doing the Wastelands. So if you have not yet and you're not up to date, please check out the previous reviews. I'll link the first one up. So go look at that. I went really deep into the drawing of the three, so go have fun and then come back and watch this one. They go together, okay? So, if you've watched the previous two, the style and pacing stuff generally stays the same. So I'm gonna go right into Sugar and Vinegar. Okay, so the sugar here is definitely the building of tension and the kind of interconnectedness of things throughout the story that I really enjoyed, and I really felt like I was putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Although they were giving me the pieces and the links and everything, I still really enjoyed it. It wasn't like a mystery, but it was really fun to see that everything actually works together. I really enjoyed the build up to that. Unfortunately, the vinegar has to be the payoff. In the end, after all that tension was built, everything was kind of anticlimactic. And I think this is the problem that I've sort of been seeing throughout the series is the fight scenes are not well written. When there was a big fight scene, a big climactic end of the world fight scene, it felt like I was watching a movie from the other room. Everything was kind of foggy, disconnected. I didn't work well to give me a clear idea of what's going on. The fight scenes weren't strong enough for me to really be there with it. And I know this is true because somehow when the characters afterwards are kind of rethinking the fight scene, reflecting on what happened, thinking back about it. When they were thinking back about it, I understood more clearly what had happened than in the actual scene where the fight is taking place. So I think definitely there's an issue here with pace. The faster the pace, the more confused I become. It's not well written, and I think the problem again here is every fight is in a brand new environment, so there's no setup for us to know what's going on, because you can't describe the layout of a room while people are kicking each other's butts. It'll kill the tension. But unfortunately, if I do not know where things are in relation to each other, I don't get what's going on. So yeah, maybe this is just a me problem, but it definitely did hinder the story a lot for me. So the series has been going for a while. If you've enjoyed it thus far, keep going. If you haven't, well, let me give you my recommendation. So the Dark Tower is kind of intertextuality, the series. So intertextuality is a literary device where you reference one text in another. So in this text, for example, they reference a book about a choo-choo train and a book of riddles. So it's not necessary that you had to have read those books. In some forms of textuality it is. In this form of intertextuality, it's not necessary, so it's well written in that extent. And it's pretty fun for me. I enjoy intertextuality as like a device. So yeah, I enjoyed that. But I am going to give this book a worse rating than I gave the previous entries into this series. It's only 4 stars because of the anticlimactic nature of the way the pacing sets up the fight scenes. Every big climax is just a little bit of a letdown. So yeah, so this is definitely a hesitant 4 stars. So just a trigger warning, there is a pretty vivid rape scene in this book. So if that's something that makes you uncomfortable, then, well, here's your warning. So, Jake's back. At first, when he gets reintroduced, it's sort of jarring. It almost feels like, why are we spending time on this? Like, he was interesting, I guess, but he was more of a plot device. Why are we spending time on him? And then more and more he becomes a focal character. So if you've seen the last review, I was sort of right. There is still the five-man band going on, but instead of Death being our fifth character, Jake is. And he is literally the wise, smart wizard coming in, bearing books, and helping them out to the next step in the chapter. So, yeah, definitely I was still right about the five-man band thing. I just had the characters mixed up because I did not call Jake coming back into the story. So Jake comes back bearing books, and these books are truths from long ago that tell our characters where to go on their way to the tower. And I kind of love that. So, Roland used to be this unknowable, formidable driving force of the story. He's going to the tower. By hell or high water, he's going to the tower. But this book humanizes him a bit. And because we go a bit deeper into Roland and we figure out he's fallible too, he worries too, he's unsure of himself sometimes, it kind of begs the question, what's his motivation? Now that he's a human with thoughts and feelings and not just a driving force to the tower, why does he want to go? So, I almost feel like Roland was better as a two-dimensional character. And I'm not sure I like where this is going, but because this series is so long, the character has developed slowly over all this time, so he might only be halfway to where he's heading. Same thing can be said for Eddie. Eddie is moving more and more towards becoming a gunslinger. He's coming more into his own, and now he also yearns for the tower out of his own curiosity, and he's sort of becoming Roland. So that as well, like, it's not quite there yet for me. But then there are two characters that I'm really disappointed by, and that's Susanna and Jake. So Susanna is, she's just kind of there. She's dulled down a lot. She's a lot, it's almost like when her two parts melted, they dulled both's edge, and now she's just kind of less interesting. She also gets raped slash rapes a demon. It's complicated. But the thing is, she's supposed to be one of our main characters, but we never deal with it. We never kind of get that introspection that we have for Roland or for Eddie. We never go into her mind enough to know how she thinks about this, what she thinks about becoming a gunslinger, or how she deals with what happens to her. And I really missed out on that. You can't just have something that traumatic happen and then gloss over it. So I was really disappointed with how little was done to this character. It's almost like she's transformed into a side character where she was one of the most interesting people there. She kind of just goes along with everything. She never really complains. She's never a hindrance. She never stops them. She just gets carried on this journey, and I really miss her having agency. Even when she was crazy, at least she wanted something. Now I'm not sure why she's here. Then there's Jake. So in the first book, he is very much a plot device. He exists for us to understand Roland through Roland's interaction with the boy. The boy. That's who he is. And now that he's a full-fledged character on his own, he's so bland. What is Jake going to do in this situation? Well, ask yourself, what would the hypothetical rational man do? Because that's what Jake is. He is our hypothetical rational man. He's almost like an insert for us as the reader to understand the world through. The thing is, though, Eddie and Susanna don't understand the world either. Why do we need for Jake to be bland for us to learn through him? It's not like all the characters are used to what's happening around them. So we're supposed to have empathy with him. He's a damsel in distress at some point, even though I never actually believed they were gonna kill off Jake this soon. So it's just, I think he's really boring, and I kind of don't care about him. And I know I'm supposed to, and that's what's kind of frustrating. He's a kid, and that's why I'm supposed to care, but like, I don't. He's literally a kid and a puppy now together, and it just, I he has no personality that I can really discern. He's brave and yeah, things, but he doesn't really, yeah. I can't tell what he's thinking. He's just into Roland with Roland, and also just no agency really. Um so yeah, he gets swept along with the plot so often. It's really difficult to think of him as a person with their own mind, emotions, and thoughts. So I just don't like Jake. He's a nothing. I don't like nothings. So the plot is sort of like a train ride. At the beginning, we're late. We're late for the train station, and we're rushing to get there. And it's really interesting how everybody has to get together. Jake has to do his little thing. Eddie has to craft a key. Like, everybody's working together. We're gonna get on this train, and then we get on the train. At the station, at the demon door, and Jake comes through the portal, and everything's good. And then we're on the train now, and it's like we're watching the world go by. The characters keep saying the world has moved on, but now it feels like we're just moving on. And they are just moving on. They meet some people, it's interesting, they move on. They meet some people, those people die, they move on. So it really does feel like the world is moving on. It's not boring because the scenes outside are really fascinating and it's interesting world building, but it doesn't really matter because they have no real impact in that world. It just, they move on. It doesn't matter anymore. It's past. And then the end is really anticlimactic again. So we've built up and built up towards the wasteland, the title of the book. This is the place we're going to. And the characters look down and see the wasteland below them, and it creates this visceral reaction of them, and of disgust and discomfort, and they're just, ugh, they hate it. And then it's described, and it's really just meh. The description did not sell me on the characters' reactions. Like, what they were saying was like maybe a description of Mars from a not that creative writer. I just, I didn't buy the wasteland and the character's reaction to it. And then the book ends on a cliffhanger, which, like, is not that steep. I don't actually believe the characters will die here, but things aren't wrapped up either. So in the end, there's a lot wrong here. This does feel like one of those middle books. It doesn't feel like it really is sure where it's going, but it's definitely going somewhere. It's like that train ride. Everything we're doing is fascinating, but it feels unimportant. It steps along the way of the journey, but the journey but the journey doesn't quite feel life or death anymore. And maybe we've been spoiled. Like, this is still a really good book, and I really enjoyed it. 4 stars still. It was by no means boring. But after the twists and turns of the doors, this is just sort of mundane. And this is sort of middle book syndrome. You can't keep building forever. Sometimes you have to hit your peak. And maybe the peak was at the drawing of the 3. I don't know. I will definitely be continuing this series. But this is not my favorite entry so far. Definitely upon a reread, one I would likely skip. So yeah. Okay. just because I always forget to say it, other reviews in the description box. Please like and comment and subscribe. And I will see you guys next week. Ta-ta. Looking back, I can kind of see that this review might be taken to be very negative, because I am pointing out all those little things that bothered me while I was reading or looking back at the book. But really, that's just because this is a really good series and it's a really good story. And this was just the first entry that really felt down for me. So I was more disappointed than I would have been if my expectations weren't set so ridiculously high. I did point out the issues I had with the book, and I still am in full agreement with that. But as I said, this book is still 4 stars. It is still well worth the read, and the story is definitely still worth it. So, let me know in the comments, for those of you who have read the whole series, which one was your favorite and least favorite entry? I'd love to hear. Bye, Whiskers!